Hi everyone, Namaste. I hope all are doing good and welcome to our crash course revision classes. So during this crash course, we will complete entire syllabus of first PU, also second PU. So today I am going to start second PU chapter, that is solution. So chapter name is solutions. So what exactly is solutions? So the definition of solutions, all you know that. So remember, it is a revision classes. So whenever you are coming to class, first study the whatever you are studying the first PU, also in the second PU. So whatever the doubts you are having, you can ask me in the WhatsApp group. So whenever you are coming to class, first study. That is very good. So we are studying solution chapter. The solution definition. It is a homogeneous mixture of two or more components. So solution means it is a homogeneous mixture. What is homogeneous mixture means? See this, for example, NaCl we are dissolving in water. So it is a solid form, it is a liquid form. Two components we are mixing. So that must be, it is called mixture. Similarly, in another example, sand we are dissolving in water. These are also two compounds. This is also mixture. Now say this, when NaCl we are dissolving in water, it should be completely soluble and the total mixture will become only single phase. Such single phase or one phase mixtures are called homogeneous mixture. So that means on dissolving, NaCl loses its identity, water also loses its identity. It will form a different compound. So such is called homogeneous mixture. But see this, when sand we are dissolving in water, so all we know that sand does not soluble because it is a covalent compound, whereas water is a polar nature. So both are different nature, solubility will be zero. So when you are mixing, the sand will be like sand, water will be like water. So that means more than one phase. Such mixtures are called heterogeneous mixtures. So mixtures can be two types: homogeneous, where all components present in uniform, whereas heterogeneous, more than one phase. So heterogeneous mixtures we'll study in surface chemistry chapter, where we study about colloids. Colloids is a heterogeneous mixture. But now in the solution chapter, we'll study about homogeneous mixture. The solution is a homogeneous mixture of two or more components. If two components are there, that is called binary solution. So now see this, in this homogeneous mixture of solution, definitely water will be present in large amount. So that large amount component is called solvent. It is also called dispersion medium. Whereas smaller amount is called solute, which is also called dispersed phase. So solute other name is dispersed phase, solvent other name is dispersion medium. So this is the definition of solution. It is a homogeneous mixture of two or more components. Now in this solution chapter, mostly we study about formulas. So how to calculate concentrations. The most important formula is concentration term. Concentration. Now what is concentration? Concentration is the amount of solute present in a given solution. Here this is the total is the solution. In this total solution, how much amount of solute is present? That mostly is called concentration. So concentration means simply amount of solute. Now this concentration can be determined by using number of formulas. What all that formulas are? There are number of concentration terms are there. Among these concentration terms, some concentration terms are temperature dependent and some concentration terms are temperature independent. Temperature dependent and temperature independent. So that means some properties which depends on temperature and some properties which does not depends on temperature. Example, temperature dependent properties like V by V percent. That means volume by volume percent. What is this volume by volume? We'll see. Another one is W by V percent. Another one is molarity. And another one is normality. So all these are concentration terms which depends on temperature. That means when temperature changes, these values also will change. And there are some temperature independent concentration terms also there. Those are molality. Another one is W by W percent, weight by weight percent. And another one is mole fraction. And another one is ppm. All these are temperature independent and these are temperature dependent. So all these are first of all concentration terms. With the help of any of these formulas, we can determine how much amount of solute is present. Then we can determine. So one by one we will see all these concentration terms. So mostly in solution chapter, numerical questions will come. So we have to remember all the formulas because these concentration formulas also present in the first PU syllabus of the basic concepts. So that is also same molarity, molality, normality. I am giving all formulas. So you have to practice this. So the first concentration term is that is weight by weight percent. So whenever percentage is given, remember that is always applicable to 100. So what is weight by weight percentage means? Its formula will be weight of solute by weight of solution into 100. This is the formula to calculate weight percent. So weight of solute by weight of solution into 100. For example, question will be given like this. So 5% of HNO3 solution. 5% of HNO3 solution. What is its meaning is 5 grams of HNO3 plus remaining 95 grams of whatever the solvent. So depends upon which solution is given. Suppose aqua solution is given. 5% HNO3 aqua solution. That means 5 grams of HNO3 and 95 grams of solvent like water. The total solute plus solvent must be equal to 100. Whatever the percentage is given, that must be solute. Remaining whatever is there, that must be solvent. So that is the percentage. Always applicable to 100. Solute plus solvent must be equal to 100. That is the weight by weight percent. Here, both solute and solvent present in weight. Weight means mass. So mass is a temperature independent. So this is a temperature independent term. Like that. Another one is weight by volume percent. So which means weight of solute by volume of solution into 100. So amount of solute must be in grams weight, whereas solution must be in volume terms. That's why it is called weight by volume term. For example, similarly we can write the third formula, volume by volume percent, which means volume of solute by volume of solution into 100. So all these three are percentage formulas. So percentage can be weight by weight percent, weight by volume percent, volume by volume percent. These two involves volume terms. So volume is directly proportional to temperature. That is called Charles law. So volume depends on temperature. That's why these two are temperature dependent, whereas mass is temperature independent. So this is a temperature independent concentration term. These two are temperature dependent concentration terms. So these three are percentage formulas. Like that, another one is there, ppm. So ppm formula is also similar to percentage. The only difference is whenever we are using percentage, we multiply it with 100. 100 means 10 square. But whenever we are using ppm, we multiply it with 1 million. 1 million means 10 power 6. So here the formula will be weight of solute by weight of solution into 10 power 6. So actually ppm is mainly used whenever the amount of solute is very small. So it is represented in a big value by taking total solution in a big amount. And solution we are taking in 1 million parts. Then amount of solute also will become more parts. So that's why ppm always applicable to small concentrations. In concentration, that means amount of solute is small, we can use ppm term. Well, that's why I am multiplying with 10 power 6. Even it is a small value, now I am multiplying with 10 power 6, it will become big value. So that's why ppm. Now all these are the concentration terms. Now the most important concentration terms are, next number 5, I think it should be molarity, denoted with capital M. So molarity definition, number of moles of solute present in 1 liter solution. So solution must be 1 liter. In 1 liter solution, how many moles of solutes are present? That is called molarity. So molarity formula, number of moles of solute by volume of solution in liters. So this will be moles per liter. So units here, N is the number of moles, volume is in liter, the units are moles per liter. Now the N, number of moles. So moles formula we know that whenever moles are coming, we use formula given mass by molar mass. So this formula also we can write given mass divided by molar mass of solute. Why? Because it is the number of moles of solute. That means given mass by molar mass of solute. When volume is given in ml, we should be divided with 1000, then it will become liter. That's why it will become 1000 by volume of solution in ml. So this is the formula of molarity. So directly we can calculate number of moles by volume, or if mass is given mass by molar mass into 1000 by volume in ml. This is the molarity formula. So for a simple example, I will write one question. Find molarity of 20 gram NaOH in 250 ml solution. So we have to find molarity of 20 grams of NaOH in 250 ml solution. So definitely apply the formula molarity, number of moles by volume. But moles are not given, mass is given 20 grams of NaOH. The formula use this given mass 20 grams by molar mass. NaOH molar mass. Mostly molar mass of any compound they will be given the question. If they are not given, so you have to calculate by adding all atoms atomic mass. NaOH, sodium atomic number 20, sodium atomic mass 23, oxygen atomic mass 16, plus hydrogen atomic mass 1. So total will become 40. So molar mass will be 40 into 1000 by volume in ml. So 250 ml solution. So volume will be 250 ml. So 250 fours, 4 tens, 10 twos. So answer will be 2m. So 2 moles per liter. So calculation of molarity is very simple. Just we have to apply the formulas. So formulas are most important in this solution chapter. So that is the molarity. Now series question. Another question, such types of questions are most important. Find the molarity of 10% W by W aqueous H2SO4 having density of solution is 1.1 gram per ml. So we have to find out molarity. But here directly mass is not given. So 10% W by W aqueous H2SO4 is given. And before I said 10% H2SO4 means percentage whatever is given, so that much mass, because it is W by W, so 10 grams of H2SO4 in, so total must be 100, the remaining will be 90 grams of water, because percentage total must be 100, so 10% means 10% is H2SO4, remaining 9% will be solvent, because it is given as aqueous H2SO4. Remaining 90% will be water. So 10% means we are taking as 10 grams, 90% means we are taking as 90 grams. So total must be 100. Now this is the mass of solute. So we have to find molarity. So what is the formula of molarity? Given mass of solute by molar mass into 1000 by volume in ml. Volume of solution in ml. So here given mass 10 grams of sulfuric acid by molar mass, to calculate molar mass of sulfuric acid, it will be 98 into 1000 by volume of solution in ml. Here volume is not given. Weight by weight percent means total mass percent. So total solution must be 100 grams, because 10 grams of solute, 90 grams of solvent. The total solution will be 100 grams. But we require volume, not mass. So how to convert mass into volume? Simply by using density. So density of solution is given. We know the formula of density. Density is equal mass by volume. So what we require? Volume of solution. From this, volume is equal mass by density. So volume of solution we required, mass of solution divided by density of solution. So mass of solution will be 100. Why? Because solute 10 grams and 90 grams of water. Total must be 100. Whenever percentage is given, total must be 100. Divide by density. So density given 1.1. So this should be gram per ml. So it should be in gram. Gram will be cancelled, so volume will be in ml. So volume will be 100 by 1.1. So you can calculate this value, whatever the answer is getting. So it should be 2 zeros will be cancelled, 1.1 will go outside. So it should be 11. Just calculate this value. So molarity formulas we have seen, and molarity also some extra formulas like that. When already one molarity solution is given, on diluting its molarity will be changes, because whenever we are diluting any solution, so concentration will be decreased. So what is the resultant molarity? That can be calculated by using M1V1 is equal to M2V2. So this formula is applicable to dilution. So solutions on dilution, its molarity will be changed. So the second molarity will be calculated by using this formula. Initial molarity into initial volume must be equal to final molarity into final volume. So it depends upon how much volume of solvent we are adding, we can determine resultant molarity. Similarly, another for mixing is also there. Mixing of acid plus acid or base plus base. Whenever two acids are mixing or two bases are mixing, then the resultant molarity formula M1V1 plus M2V2 plus and so on divided by total volume. So this formula for mixing, acid mixing or base mixing. Not only two acids or two bases, any number of acids we can mix. If we are mixing three acids, N1V1 plus, N2V2 plus, N3V3 divided by total volume. So this is for mixing of acid or base. But suppose if we are mixing one acid plus one base, then we cannot determine directly molarity. We always use normality. What is normality? I will explain. So when we are mixing acid and base, that is called neutralization. So during the neutralization, we always determine normality. Its formula will be N1V1 minus N2V2 by total volume. So this is important. This is for acid plus base. Sign will be minus and always normality. And this is acid plus acid or base plus base. The sign will be positive. We can calculate directly molarity. But when two acids and acid or base we are mixing, so we cannot calculate molarity. We always calculate normality. So this is most important. What is normality? We will say now. So these are important formulas. So also molarity is a volume term, number of moles by volume. So wherever volume is involved, it must be temperature dependent. So the next one is normality, represented with capital N. So normality definition, it is the number of gram equivalents present in 1 liter solution. So first of all, what is gram equivalent? We'll say, before going to gram equivalent, first we'll see one term, equivalent weight. Equivalent weight. We know molecular weight. Another one term is the equivalent weight. So what is the equivalent weight is? It is the molecular weight by valency. If the molecular weight is divided with valency, then the total term is called equivalent weight. Now what is a valency? So valency depends on nature of solute what we are taking. Suppose if the solute is an acid, HCl or H2SO4 or H3PO4, H3PO3, H3PO2, all these are the acids. So acids always contain valency factor, that is called basicity. Acids basicity means how many hydrogen ions can donate by an acid is called basicity. So number of hydrogen ions donated by an acid is called basicity. In HCl, when you are treating with any compound, it will release one H plus. So its valency will be 1. Sulfuric acid will release 2 H plus ions. Valency factor will be 2. H3PO4, it is called phosphoric acid. Its release 3 ions. That's why valency factor will be 3. H3PO3, phosphorus acid. Its valency factor will be only 2. Even though it contains 3 hydrogen, but its valence factor will be 2 because that is depends on its actual structure. H3PO3 structure will be learned in P block elements. Actually I am explaining. When you are writing this structure, the structure should be like this. So this is the structure of H3PO3. H3PO3. In this 3 hydrogens are there. Even though 3 hydrogens are there, only 2 hydrogens are attached to oxygen. So they can release as H plus. But the third hydrogen directly attached to central atom does not release as H plus. That's why its valence factor will be 2. Like that H3PO2, its valence factor will be 1. We can write this structure. So valence factor will be 1. So number of hydrogen ions donated by an acid is called valency. Same like applicable to bases also. If we are taking bases like NaOH, number of OH minus ions is called acidity. So base contains acidity, whereas acids containing basicity, that is also called valency. NaOH valence will be 1. Same like calcium hydroxide, valence will be 2. Aluminium hydroxide, Valence will be 3. This is acid and this is base. Sometimes salts are given. So like Na2CO3. It is a salt. When salts are given, take total positive charge as a valency factor. Total positive charge means 1 sodium contains 1 positive. Whereas here 2 sodiums are there, 2 into plus 1, total plus 2. That means 2 is a valency factor. So salts has total positive charge, bases has number of OH minus ions donated, acids has number of H plus ions donated. This we are calling as valency. So when the valency divides molecular weight, then the value is called equivalent weight. Remember it, most important. Equivalent weight is equal to molecular weight by valency. Now this equivalent weight will come in normality. So molarity based on molecular weight, whereas normality based on equivalent weight. Now the definition of normality: number of equivalents, sometimes called gram equivalents. Number of gram equivalents of solute in 1 liter solution is called normality. So in 1 liter solution, how many number of equivalents are there? That is called normality. Its formula will be number of equivalents by volume in liter. So again, when you are writing the formula, equivalent weight, equivalent is, we know that moles is a given mass by molar mass. Given mass by molar mass is the equivalent number of moles. But when you are writing equivalent moles, given mass by equivalent mass into 1000 by volume in ml. If you are taking molar mass here, that should be molarity. If you are taking equivalent mass here, that should be normality. So only difference is valency factor. And what is equivalent mass? Equivalent mass is equal to molar mass by valence into 1000 by volume in ml. If valency, we can take this side. So this total value will be molarity. Molarity into valency. So normality formula, molarity into valency simply. So when anyone is asking normality, first we have to calculate molarity. When that molarity multiplied with valence, simply we get normality. So molarity is equal to normality by valence, or normality is equal to molarity into valence. So both are interrelated, only valency is changed. If valence is 1, normality, molarity, both are same. This is about normality. So another one is seventh concentration term will be molarity, denoted with small m. Molarity. So it is the number of moles of solute present in 1 kg solvent. Up to now, whatever the concentration terms, solutes present in solution, but molarity, solutes present in solvent. In a given solvent, how many solutes are present? That is called molarity. So number of moles of, denoted with small m, number of moles of solute by mass of solvent in kg. So formula, when we are writing moles formula, given mass by molar mass into, when the solvent mass given in grams, so simply divide with 1000 by mass of solvent. So this should be solvent in grams. So that is the formula of molarity. So all are simple formulas, just we have to remember this formula. The last formula will be mole fraction. So mole fraction is denoted with X. So mole fraction we can determine both for solute also, solvent also. Let A and B are two components on mixing, they are forming solution. Let A will be solvent. Anything we can take, that is our choice. So one should be solvent, another one is the solute. Just for simplification, let's take as A as a solvent, B as a solute. So if we want to know the mole fraction of solvent, so its formula will be number of moles of solvent by total number of moles. So mole fraction of any component is equal to number of moles of that component divided by total number of moles. Same like mole fraction of B is equal to number of moles of B total by total number of moles. So this is the mole fraction formula. So ratio of moles of one component to the total number of moles is called mole fraction. Also remember, the mole fraction of solution must be equal to 1. So mole fraction of solvent plus solution equal to 1. So when we know the one mole fraction of compound, so other mole fraction easily we can determine by subtracting from 1. Easily we can get. That is the mole fraction formulas. So whenever questions are not coming, just ask me in WhatsApp group. So I will explain the questions also. So these are concentration terms. So with the help of these formulas, so concentration we can determine either by in solution or in solvent, whatever we can determine concentration. So most important, these formulas also will come continuously in the basic concept chapter also. So these are very important formulas. So practice these formulas and try to solve some questions of these formulas. So the next topic will be after this concentration terms. So the next topic will be solubility. The next topic is solubility. So what exactly solubility is? It is the maximum amount of solute that we can dissolve in a specified amount of solvent. Suppose if you are taking 100 grams of water, in this 100 grams of water, maximum how much amount of salt? Suppose example NaCl we are taking. So how much amount of NaCl we are dissolved? That amount of salt is called solubility. So solubility is also again amount of solute. Concentration terms also same, amount of solute. Solubility also amount of solute. But what difference is, concentration is any amount is possible. But in solubility, amount is always fixed. It cannot be changed. Solubility means at normal condition. That means at standard temperature and standard pressure, how much amount of solute we can dissolve in a specified amount of solvent is called solubility. Now, so this solubility depends on number of factors. So number of factors like nature of solute and solvent what we are using. For example, NaCl can be easily soluble in water, so its solubility will be high. In place of NaCl, if you are taking benzene, so benzene is insoluble in water, its solubility is low. That means, so depends on the nature also, solubility changes. The main factor of solubility is nature of solute and solvent. So nature must be similar. Similar the nature of solute and solvent. So easier the solubility or more the solubility. That is the first factor. The primary factor is nature of solute and solvent. Also after that nature, temperature is also affect the solubility. Pressure is also affect the solubility. One example will say solubility of solid in liquid. So in liquid solvent, we are dissolving solid solute and now the solubility will be affected. So as I told, the primary factor will be nature. The first factor will be nature. If nature of viscous phase and dispersion medium, that means solute and solvent, are similar, then solubility will be more. So that is the first factor. Nature, dispersed phase, dispersion medium, nature will be similar and solubility will be more. If nature is different, solubility will be less. That is the first factor. The second factor will be temperature. So we are dissolving solid in liquid. So when we are dissolving solids in liquid, so some dissolutions can be exothermic, whereas some dissolutions can be endothermic. So based on the nature of the reaction, either it is exo or endo, so temperature affects the reaction. So in the equilibrium chapter, we know that Lee-Chatelier principle. According to Lee-Chatelier principle, so exothermic reactions favorable at low temperature, whereas endothermic reactions favorable at high temperature. That means if the dissolution process is exo, then temperature we have to decrease. At low temperature, solubility will be higher. If the process is endothermic, at high temperature, so solubility will be higher. So it depends on nature of reaction. Simply for exo, solubility inversely proportional to temperature. If the process is exo, solubility inversely to temperature. That means the temperature we are increasing, solubility of the component will be decreases. If the process is endo, then solubility directly proportional to temperature. So we don't know mostly which is the exo process, which is the endo process, that is experimental values. So based on the enthalpy, delta H values they will give, suppose. They will give delta H values. So they will give delta H value, delta H is negative, that should be exothermic, delta H is positive, that should be endothermic. So based on the enthalpy, we can identify which is exo, which is endo. So exo reactions, solubility inversely to temperature, endo reactions, solubility directly to temperature. And the third factor will be pressure. But remember, we are dissolving solid in liquid. Both solids and liquids are mostly incompressible in nature. The compressibility of solid and liquids are nearly negligible. So since they are incompressible, that does not affected by pressure. If we are increasing pressure or decreasing pressure, solubility of a solid in liquid does not affect. So solubility of a solid in liquid independent of pressure only depends on temperature and nature. So this is the most important. So similarly, when we are observing solubility of a gas in liquid, now we are taking solubility of a gas in liquid. So when we are dissolving gas in a liquid, so which factors affects the solubility? So as I told, the primary factor will be nature. If the nature of dispersed phase, dispersion mediums are similar, the solubility will be more. For example, if you are dissolving carbon dioxide gas in water, CO2 we are dissolving in water. Water is a polar molecule, whereas CO2 is a non-polar. So since both natures are different, so it is not easily soluble. That means solubility of CO2 is very less. But in place of CO2, if you are using SO2 gas, suppose. So SO2 gas is a polar molecule. So since it is a polar, it is also polar. They can be easily dissolved. So making of sulfurous acid like H2SO3. So nature of the dispersed phase, dispersion mediums are similar. The solubility will be higher. So that is the primary factor, nature of the solute and solvent. The second factor will be temperature. Same also like if the process is exothermic, so temperature is inversely to solubility. If the process is endothermic, temperature is directly to solubility. So that is also same. And the third factor, pressure. So when we are coming to pressure, gas is highly compressible. So gases are highly compressible. So more the pressure when you are applying, so more the compression, easier the solubility. So the solubility of a gas in liquid is directly proportional to pressure. So more the pressure of the gas, so more the solubility of the gas in a liquid. So this pressure factor is stated by Henry's, and that law is called Henry's law. So Henry's law simply explains solubility of a gas in liquid. How gases can be dissolved in liquid? By the help of Henry's law. So what Henry's law says that, so the solubility of a gas is directly proportional to partial pressure of the gas. So solubility directly proportional to partial pressure, or in formula base, partial pressure is directly proportional to solubility. Solubility means amount of solute, and that amount of solute mostly we use mole fraction term, because number of concentration terms are there. In Henry's law, mostly we use mole fraction term. So according to this, the partial pressure of the gas is directly proportional to mole fraction. So from this, equal to one constant will come. That constant is called Kh into X. So this is the Henry's law formula. So partial pressure of the gas is always equal to Kh. Kh is called Henry's constant, whereas X is the mole fraction. So the value of Kh when you are observing, it should be P by X. So X is the amount of solubility. If Kh will be higher, solubility will be lesser. So solubility and Kh both are inversely related actually. So Kh value depends on nature of the gas. So the values will be given in the exam. So based on the Kh values, we have to identify which gas is more soluble, which gas is less soluble. Higher the Kh value, solubility will be lesser. So lesser the Kh value, solubility will be higher. So that is the Henry's law. Simple statement. The partial pressure of the gas is directly proportional to its solubility. That means mole fraction. The constant will come. That is the Henry's constant. Now, what is the use of applications of this Henry's law? So as I told, more the pressure, more the solubility of the gas. So that means we are taking CO2 gas. Normally it is not soluble in water, but when we are applying high pressure, so it should be dissolved in water. We will form carbonic acid, H2CO3. That means soft drinks, cool drinks are prepared by applying high pressure. So under high pressure, carbon dioxide gas dissolved in water. So that's why when we are opening the soft drink bottles, so whatever the high pressure gases are dissolved, that will be coming to upside due to releasing of pressure, because those gases are dissolved under high pressure. When pressure is decreased, again gases will be evaporate. So that's why solubility of carbon dioxide is based on Henry's law. More the pressure, more the solubility. So another application. So when we are observing scuba divers, so scuba divers, they are diving into the sea by taking some atmospheric cylinders, because when you are going to the depths of the water, so required atmospheric gases will be there. That's why they take cylinders. So that cylinders containing mostly atmospheric gases. Atmospheric gases containing mostly 70% nitrogen, mostly 29% oxygen. So that is atmospheric gases. So when they are going to the depths, so depths contains more pressure. When pressure is high, then when you are respirating those atmospheric gases, the gases are directly dissolved in the blood, because pressure is high. And under high pressure, gases are highly dissolved in the liquids. So when we are respirating atmospheric gases under high pressure, that means in depth, so the gases completely dissolve in blood. And again when they are coming to upside, the pressure will be released. when the pressure becomes low, whatever the gases are dissolved in blood, so they will convert it to bubbles. So these bubbles will inhibit the flow of blood. So which causes a disease which is called Bend's disease. So this is a very dangerous to health. So Bend's disease is mainly due to high solubility of gases, atmospheric gases in the blood. Because under that gases are highly soluble in blood. So when they are coming to upwards, so pressure will be released. When the pressure will be released, again gases will come outside by forming bubbles. So these bubbles will inhibit the transfer flow of blood. So because of that, so a disease will form that is called Bend's disease. So it is a very dangerous to health. But is also based on solubility. So that's why to remove this Bend's disease, that means to decrease this. So these scuba diver cylinders are diluted with helium. Mostly atmospheric gases containing nitrogen and oxygen. But when they are diluted with helium, the solubility of a gases will become low. So why? Because helium is very less compressible. So it is called permanent gas. So because of its less compressibility, it decreases solubility of atmospheric gases. That's why scuba sea divers cylinders are diluted with helium. Mostly 11% of helium will be mixed with atmospheric gases. So that is the applications of Henry's law. The most important Henry's law. Solubility directly to pressure. So the next topic will be vapor pressure. So we completed concentration terms and also we completed solubility. So next topic will be vapor pressure. So what is actual vapor pressure? Just say this, for example, if you are taking a water in a beaker. So this total is a water, all these are the water molecules, H2O molecules. And this is also water molecules. So these are called surface molecules and the present insides are called bulk molecules. These are surface molecules, these are bulk molecules. When the bulk molecules observing, they always experience the force of attraction by surrounding molecules. That means this molecule is attracted by this one, this one, this one, this one. All directly, all now directions, they experience the force of attraction. But when we are observing surface molecule, there is no above molecules are there. They only attracted by inside molecules. The surface molecule only attracted by inside molecule, whereas bulk molecules attracted by all surrounded molecules. That means the surface molecules experience less attractive force when compared with bulk molecule. So due to this less attractive force, these can be escaped from the liquid and converted to gas. This process is called evaporation. So liquids can be evaporated. When liquids are evaporating, surface molecules will be evaporated, not inside molecules. Remember, surface molecules will be evaporated. Why? Because they containing less force of attraction, so they can break their forces and escape. So the process is called evaporation. If the beaker is open, the gases directly will be evaporated into the atmosphere. Suppose if the beaker is closed, it is a closed container. Now evaporated molecules cannot escape from the beaker. Now here vapor molecules will be increased. When gas molecules increase, so these gas molecules will collide with each other. So due to that pressure, again these will be condensing into liquid. After some time, this will be condensing into liquid. So a particular stage will become where the number of liquid converted to gas is equal to number of gas converted to liquid. So that particular stage we called equilibrium. So equilibrium is a state where the rate of forward is equal to rate of backward. You know that definition. The rate of forward means liquid molecules converted to gas. Backward means gas converted to liquid. When both numbers must be equal, At that stage we call equilibrium is reached. When the equilibrium is reached, so whatever the vapor present on the surface of the liquid, so due to that they exhibit some pressure. That pressure is called vapor pressure. So vapor pressure definition: the pressure exerted by vapor above the liquid surface when it is present in equilibrium. So that means this liquid has some pressure. So that is called vapor pressure. Just we are taking only one component, water suppose. If we are taking water, so it has some pressure. So that is called vapor pressure. So vapor pressure of a component is denoted with P naught. Suppose the component is A, denoted with P naught A. When you are writing naught, that means it is the vapor pressure of only pure component. Here we are not mixing anything. So pure component we are taking, so its vapor pressure will be P naught. If we are taking B component, that is called P naught B. So vapor pressure means pressure of a vapor above the liquid surface when it is present in equilibrium. Now see this. We are taking liquid A, we are taking liquid B also. So just we are closing. So whatever the pressure it have, it is called P naught A. So vapor pressure of A, pure vapor pressure of A. And whatever the pressure it have, it is called P naught B. But when these two components we are mixing, then it will form solution. So it has A also, it has B also. Now it also has some pressure. Now this pressure we cannot call directly it is a pressure of A, we cannot call directly pressure of B. So it is a mixture. So how much pressure of A is present, how much pressure of B is present. So that is called partial vapor pressure. So vapor pressure is different, partial vapor pressure is different. So what is pure vapor pressure means? If it is not mixed with any other component, its actual pressure is called pure pressure. But when you are mixing with other component, its pressure will be changed. So what is its pressure after mixing? That is called partial pressure. So here A containing partial pressure A, B also containing partial pressure B. Now how to calculate this partial pressure? Suppose in this solution, if amount of A is higher, so definitely pressure of A also will be higher. If amount of B is higher, definitely pressure of B is also higher. So this partial pressure is directly proportional to mole fraction of its component. If you are taking A, mole fraction of A is higher, partial pressure of A is also higher, partial pressure of B is also directly proportional to mole fraction of B. So this is called Raoult's law. So Raoult's law simply says that when the two components, remember these two components are volatile liquids. Just it is a volatile liquid, it is also volatile liquid. When two volatile liquids we are mixing, what is meant by volatile? So volatile means they can easily evaporate. Non-volatile means so it cannot be evaporate. So mostly we are taking volatile liquids, one liquid of A and one liquid of B, both are volatile. After mixing, each component exhibits some pressure, that is called partial pressure. So remember the difference between pure pressure and partial pressure. So pure pressure is always constant because it depends on nature of the component. If this is highly volatile, it has high vapor pressure. Less volatile, so less vapor pressure. So depends on nature, pure pressure is always constant. But partial pressure does not constant, it can be changed. That is depends on amount of the component what we are taking. So according to Raoult's law, so this law is given by Raoult's. So what the Raoult's law says that in a mixture of two volatile liquids, the partial pressure of each component is directly proportional to its mole fraction. So that is the Raoult's law statement. Partial pressure of each component PA is directly proportional to mole fraction of that component. So that means PA is, when we are taking proportional converted to equal, one constant will come. So that constant again will be P naught A into XA, because P naught A is a constant. It is depends on only nature of the liquid. Same like PV is directly proportional to XB is equal P naught B into XB. So this is the Raoult's law. Partial pressure directly proportional to mole fraction. Now, according to Dalton's law, in the first PO in gaseous state, you know the Dalton's law. What the Dalton's law says that the total pressure is always equal to sum of partial pressure, PA plus PB. So that means PA means P naught A into XA plus P naught B into XB. So this will be the P total. So this is important question. So most number of times the question is came. They give two components. Their pure pressures they will give, and they will give masses of that component. So we have to calculate total pressure. So first we have to calculate partial pressure. Pure pressure they will give. Amount they will give. Based on amount we have to calculate mole fraction. So mole fraction formula already given. So with the help of formula, first we have to calculate mole fraction multiplied with pure pressure. We get partial pressure. When we are summing the partial pressure, we get total pressure. So this is the Raoult's law. Raoult's law for volatile components. Now, the solutions which obey Raoult's law are called ideal solutions. This is the most important. Ideal solutions and non-ideal solutions. So any solution which obeys Raoult's law, then it is called ideal solutions. What is the Raoult's law? Partial pressure directly proportional to mole fraction. Suppose when you are writing the graph, pressure versus mole fraction, let XA, PA. So partial pressure and mole fraction both are directly proportional. So when mole fraction increases, partial pressure increases. So it will become like this. We are adding another graph. From this side I am taking partial pressure and XB. Partial pressure of B is directly proportional to XB. So when XB increasing, partial pressure is also increasing. So this is the partial pressure of A, which is equal to P naught A into XA, and this is partial pressure of B, which is equal to P naught B into XB. So this will be partial pressure, this will be partial pressure. When both partial pressures, when we are adding like this, so we get total pressure. So P total is equal to PA plus PB. Very simple. So this is nothing but Raoult's law graph. Actually these are two graphs. PA versus XA, PB versus XB. Just both graphs we are mixing. So it will come like this. So any solution which obeys Raoult's law, then the solution is called ideal solution. So ideal solutions are those solutions which obeys Raoult's law at all conditions. Now, the conditions to exhibit this ideal solution, ideal solutions must follow some condition. The conditions are delta H mix is equal to 0. Delta V mix is equal to 0, and attractions of AA and BB must be equal to AB. So these are some conditions which we have to follow for ideal solution. So what the Raoult's law says that pressure directly proportional to mole fraction. That means only depends on amount. If amount is more, pressure will be more. Now, what the ideal solution says that enthalpy mix will be 0. That means when two components we are mixing, energy neither released nor absorbed. And such solutions are called ideal solution. When two components we are mixing, the volume must be equal. That means suppose 20 ml of one liquid, 30 ml of another liquid we are mixing. So final solution must be 50 ml. If it is more than 50 or less than 50, it cannot be ideal. So ideal means reactants volume and solution volume must be similar. So AA attraction, that means solute attraction and solvent attractions must be equal to attraction of solution. So these are the conditions of ideal solutions. So number of examples are there for ideal solutions. So practice. So I will send one material also. So from that we will practice examples. For example, benzene and toluene, they form nearly ideal solution. When nature is same, this is a benzene compound, and nature is similar, energy neither released nor absorbed, then the nearly ideal solution. Another is C2H5Cl, C2H5Br. Both are haloalkane, chloroethane, bromoethane, like N-hexane plus N-heptane. So both are alkanes. So both are similar nature. So similar nature components nearly form ideal solution. So any solutions which obey Raoult's law, that is called ideal solution. Similarly, the solutions which does not obey, that means they are deviating from Raoult's law, those are called non-ideal solutions. So non-ideal solutions either show positive deviation or will show negative deviation. Just one example I will give. So when we are mixing C2H5OH and acetone, two components we are mixing, ethanol and acetone. So we all know that ethanol has hydrogen bond. And what is hydrogen bond? It will be come in the chemical bonding topic. But just I think all of you know that hydrogen bond, wherever chlorine, oxygen, nitrogen along with hydrogens are there, so they can form hydrogen bond. So alcohol has hydrogen bond, but in ketone there is no hydrogen bond. So one is hydrogen bonded compound, another one is the no hydrogen bond. So when we are dissolving acetone in alcohol, acetone when we are adding to alcohol, its hydrogen bonds will break. When bonds means force of attractions, when attractions are broken, the evaporation will be more, vapor pressure will be more. Then pressure is increasing more than the mole fraction, and such deviations are called positive deviations. So this compound, this mixture will exhibit positive deviation from Raoult's law. Raoult's law only says that pressure is only depends on mole fraction. But when the components like this, it has hydrogen bond. When it is dissolved in this, its hydrogen bonds are breaking. When bonds are breaking, that means force of attractions are different. So that means it is a non-ideal solution. When attractions are breaking, vaporization will be more. So when the force of attractions of components of reactants and solutions are different, such solutions are called non-ideal. And in this non-ideal, so because of bond breaking, evaporation will be increases, vapor pressure will be increases. So deviation is called positive deviation. So in positive deviations, vapor pressure will be increases than the expected. So expected should be like this, but it is increasing due to breaking of forces of attraction. So both components will be increases, the total pressure also will be increases. So this is the positive deviation. Same like another example, if you are taking chloroform CHCl3 and acetone CHCO3. In this both there is no hydrogen bond. Here also no hydrogen bond, here also no hydrogen bond. So, but when we are dissolving these two, see this, individually both are not having hydrogen bond, but after mixing, there is a possibility of hydrogen bond between oxygen and hydrogen. So here extra hydrogen bonds are forming, that means more force of attraction. So evaporation will be less, pressure also will be less. Such deviations are called negative deviations. So this is negative deviation, this is the positive deviations. When our forces are breaking, positive deviation, and forces are from forming, then that will be negative deviation. So negative deviation is just I am explaining here. Pressure will be decreases like this. Each pressure will be decreases and total pressure also will be decreases like this. So this is about Raoult's law, ideal and non-ideal solutions. So which are positive deviation, which are negative deviation. So I will send some examples. So practice that examples. So remaining whatever they present will stay in the next class. Up to here, let's practice all concentration terms, solubility and vapor pressure. So this you have to practice. Thank you very much.